Welcome to the Double Dribble podcast with Dubin and Dakhil. That's Jared Dubin, author of the amazing, most extraordinary NBA newsletter, Last Night in Basketball. Make sure you're a subscriber to it. Make sure you're supporting Jared and checking out all his good stuff. You're going to get good bits of information from him. He's going to make you smarter. It's that simple. I podcast with him because he makes me smarter. I'm Mo Dakhil, former NBA video coordinator, write for Bleacher Report, do videos on Offside, contributor on NBA TV, all that fun stuff. We are on the RealGM network. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the network. Make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. Make sure you're letting everybody know where we're at, where they can find us, and that we're awesome. It's really that simple. If you're not going to leave a 5-star review, you don't really need to leave a review then. It's kind of that simple. We've been good. We haven't talked about our dogs today yet. For a few pods, so I kind of broke the string there, but so to that person, they can at least change their rating. Jared, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. It's been a little over a week since the Knicks won the title. I'm still up on a high, and I did go to the parade. We didn't talk about that before.
That's right. The parade. Yes, you did. You had a homework assignment. Tell me about that.
Technically, I went to the parade. I couldn't get closer than like a block and a half away. The parade goes up Broadway on the Canyon of Heroes. I was on Church Street, like a block and a half away, and you couldn't see anything at all other than just like, first of all, Broadway obviously is all packed, lined with people everywhere. Then the block between Church and Broadway is all packed, lined with people everywhere. You can't get through, standing shoulder to shoulder. And then all of Church Street is packed, shoulder to shoulder, going down everywhere. Like, it was impossible to move, impossible to see basically anything. And it was like a float would come by in between the intersection, and you would hear people cheering up in front, but you can't see what they're cheering for. And then another like 2 minutes later, the same thing would happen. And I was like, what am I actually doing here? I'm going to go home and watch the rest of this on TV.
What was the vibes?
I mean, that was the vibe. Like, everybody was cheering for stuff that they couldn't actually see.
Okay. It looked great. It looked amazing.
There were lots of drunk people, obviously.
Yes.
Lots of very, very drunk people. People like up on lampposts and scaffolding and everything else that you can climb on. There was like a truck sitting in the middle of the intersection that people climbed up on, like on all different levels. There were people on the tires. There were people on the back. There were people on the top. Like, it was ridiculous.
I saw them lift a grandma up onto like one of those trucks, and it was pretty funny. Look, it was awesome. It was great. I think this is everything we thought would happen with a New York winning the championship once it kind of became a thing, and for the most part seemed to be pretty awesome. I loved Mamdani's speech.
He remembered some guys. Except, you know what? There was a problem with it, though. You know what it was?
No, what was it?
He shouted out Tony Douglas.
Never played for the Knicks?
No, he went to Florida State. Come on.
Oh, I don't keep up with your fucking inner rivals of things. Like, I was like, what was wrong with Tony? I was like, I'm pretty sure he played, but when you said, I was like, maybe he didn't play for the Knicks. But you're just going, he can't be perfect, dog. He can't worry about your Miami fucking sensibilities because of that. He's the mayor of New York City. He doesn't have to worry about Tallahassee or Miami itself or Gainesville or all your rivals. Okay.
He should.
Okay.
Should be attuned to those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that people like me care about. But you know what? The only other problem with the celebration was none of the players talked except for Brunson, who is like deliberately the least interesting person to talk.
Yeah.
Like, he's very much like Derek Jeter, where he says a lot but doesn't actually say anything. And you don't get like Josh Hart would have been a great speaker. Cat would have been a great speaker. Bridges, after his epic Instagram live, would have been a great speaker. Like, to not hear from anybody else other than Brunson, and then like all of the lower level politicians after Mamdani who gave the same speech, we didn't need to hear from all of them.
You didn't need to hear after Mamdani. There shouldn't have been another politician to speak. And
right, honestly, you should have gotten the players.
It should have been all the players after that. Also, Dolan, like, dude, what a massive dick. With everything that he like his response to Mamdani's and things like that. Like, I'm just saying, dude, like, He's the one reason why I wish New York didn't win, is that he has some sort of modicum of success. Him and his son, talk about a bunch of babies. But anyways, we digress because we got to talk. Jared, we had a trade this weekend. We've been waiting for a trade.
We've been waiting for it. It finally happened.
Weekend. We were like, what are the machinations? If it happens at this time, can we do an emergency pot? We were planning all sorts of like, okay, we have to be, when this trade happens, we have to be ready. And then it did. Shams reports Aaron Wiggins to the Atlanta Hawks for 2 future second-round picks.
Unbelievable. This is what we've all been waiting for. Just a massive deal that swings the balance of power in the league. No, I mean, I really like Aaron Wiggins. I think this is a great deal for the Hawks. They bring him in with a trade exception that they created last year, only give up 2 future second-round picks. This is a guy who was part of swinging playoff games, not this past year, but the year before. Like, he's a good player. He can shoot. He can create off the dribble. We saw every time that the Thunder didn't have their guys in the game, Wiggins would go off for 30 or 35 points. Like, he has a real offensive skill set, and he can guard. He's a good player.
I actually love the trade for Atlanta. And we understand why OKC is doing it. Bobby Marks had it. I should have been more prepared, as always. Had it for those that are wondering why they would make this trade. And excuse me, I'm scrolling right now. Bobby Marks posted this. Entering the offseason, Oklahoma City had a projected tax penalty of $213 million. This trade reduced it 152. The Thunder still have the 12th and 17th pick in the draft. It also gives them one open roster spot. They had 15 guys on the roster. They now have 14. So they still have more work to do. There's been a lot of stuff like that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But
you want to just finish it up now? We might as well.
Well, because it leads to other things of what OKC is doing.
Right.
Like what other things for other teams. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But of course, we're also being a little bit dumb here with you folks. And I know the trade that we are all waiting for, what is the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, it really feels like a hostage situation at this point. And it's us. We're the hostages. Like, we're just waiting for this to be over at this point. Like, we're just waiting for Giannis to get traded. Honestly, anywhere. I just want resolution at this point with all that. But over the weekend, it really felt like there was the trade to Miami was gaining steam. It was sound like it was going to be a 3 or 4 team trade. Hero was going to be in Detroit. Looked like the Lakers were going to find a way to get involved and get Isaiah Stewart. Also, I saw somewhere somebody saying they were even going to get Khalil Ware. I don't know how real any of this stuff is. But, like, there is all sorts of stuff. But it felt like this is going to happen imminently. And then it kind of, like, Sunday sort of began to, like, slow down. And you and I were ready. When I talk about we were planning emergency pods, I was like, yo, I have a Father's Day brunch at 2:30. You had, on the West Coast, you were taking your dad to dinner around that same time. We're like, okay, well, if we need to do a podcast after that, we'll do it. We'll be ready. All that stuff. Nothing happens. And then it begins to come out like, oh, no, Boston's now, in Brian Windhorst's words, all in on the Giannis sweepstakes, which means they've put Jaylen Brown in the trade. I mean, this is getting kind of wild. We'll see how it plays out. I want to start with this. And I'm going to say this, and you can counter it if you have a counter. There is no way Miami can compete if Jaylen Brown's in the trade. Like, that's the headline piece in the trade if for Milwaukee, whether Milwaukee's keeping him or spinning him off elsewhere, right? Like, am I wrong to think that?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think you're exactly right. I think that Jaylen Brown is pretty clearly the best piece that could be involved in the trade from either of these sides. I think especially if the Bucks want to spin him off into getting more assets. Like, I think you could just get a lot more for him than you could for Tyler Hero. Like, if it's the Miami trade offer, no matter where you're spinning Hero, what you're getting from other places, you're really getting like the poo-poo platter of assets where you're trying to make up for quality with quantity. and you're just hoping that one of these lottery tickets turns into something at some point. But really, that's all they are, is lottery tickets. And most lottery tickets don't turn into anything. Most of the time you lose. Jaylen Brown is a really good player who proved throughout this season that he could be the best player on like a 2 seed. Would that actually work in Milwaukee? No, because they don't have the rest of the roster to be a 2 seed.
Not a Miles Turner fan?
I'm not a rest of the Bucks roster fan. But they could conceivably be a decent team this year if they decided to keep Jaylen Brown and bring in some more guys. They could conceivably be halfway decent, or they could spin Jaylen Brown off to Portland or Atlanta or somewhere else and try to get a lot more assets for him. And I would imagine it's not just going to be Jaylen Brown for Giannis straight up. Like, I would think you're getting more than just Jaylen Brown, and that's probably what's being haggled over right now. But two more things here. First, it seemed like literally everybody and their mother got the same, hey, this might be happening tonight text on Saturday at the exact same time, because that was going around everywhere. It's also possible that that was just the Heat putting out there, hey, this might be going down soon, so they could put pressure on the Bucks. And it seems like Jimmy Haslam was not particularly happy about that development. So there that is. And then, sorry, I forgot what the second point was. So only one thing.
Well, I think the what I would say to me is this also signals something.
Oh, I actually do remember what the second point was.
Go for it.
Boston does not leak usually. So I find it very strange that this is so heavily out there that the Celtics are offering Jaylen Brown, apparently. Because usually when Boston makes big moves, they come kind of out of nowhere. So this being so public, I just find it interesting. And is it putting pressure on Miami or Detroit or someone else to bring in even more into the offer? Or is it actually like this is very close to the finish line and that's why it's coming out about Boston now?
I would say it's actually probably a bit of both. I think the story is, and I'm going to sneeze. Apologize, people, for sneezing. Hopefully that wasn't all in your ears. Nobody cares about my health, but I've been sneezing nonstop all weekend. I think the actual thing for me is like it's both. One, I think the Bucks can just say yes to either trade and it's done. Like, I think the frameworks are done, right? But I think what they are pushing for is like they're looking at Miami going like, we know the framework's done and we're kind of, but we got this offer now. Like, legitimately, you need to add more, and you have basically until the draft to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably what's going on with the way they're kind of trying to figure this stuff out and make this work. So maybe that's why. And like we've said this before, like if they liked Miami's offer, if they liked this three-team trade offer, they'd have done this already. This has been talked about ad nauseum, for like basically since the parade. And I think that's really kind of and really longer than that, but like it's gained more steam of late. They would have taken this offer already. So we do have that kind of to consider. I think ultimately at the end of the day, for me, the biggest thing about this is this signals Brad Stevens doesn't believe this team can play the way they played and win. This Boston Celtics team, and that they need to go get a guy. He said it in his press conference. I'm not breaking like ground. He said it in his press conference after they got bounced in the postseason. And it showed like maybe this all threes all the time thing isn't going to work.
Mm.
And we need to find another way. Ultimately, whether they get Giannis or not, I think Jaylen Brown's played his last game as a Celtic.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point just because there's been so much smoke around a potential deal here, and we know that he's not going to be particularly happy about having his name loaded out there. Where he would go other than Milwaukee, I think, is an interesting question. Obviously, there are teams that could be interested: Portland, Atlanta, New Orleans, whoever else. I don't know. And New Orleans would be more of the Celtics are interested in Trey Murphy kind of thing rather than the Pelicans are interested in Jaylen Brown, I would think. But there are obviously plenty of teams that would be interested in a guy who just showed he could carry the second highest usage rate in the league and be the best player on a very good team.
Yeah, and I think the we talked a little bit about this last episode, but like I think Giannis is the one major piece they can get back. If they trade him elsewhere, they're going to get multiple pieces back for him in the way I would view it, obviously. And I think, so maybe that helps fill out their roster in a certain way. But I think I'm operating under the assumption of like I think Boston is now in the lead for him in the way of like they just have the better offer. It's not as drawn out, but it's kind of like the Dame situation for Miami. At the end of the day, Portland had a better offer. Milwaukee had a better offer for Portland than Miami did, and I think they're just going to get outgunned again in that scenario. I think it'll be interesting to see how Miami pivots.
It's telling that it's basically the same offer. Like,
yeah, I mean it is, but I think Miami pivots. And I think then we start to see stuff. We'll start to hear stories of like they're going to go after Kawhi. We've already heard the names. Like I think it was Kawhi, Trey. There was a third name I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know if what they get done and what happens with all of that. But I think it's really an interesting sort of case of like, all right. And for me with Boston, like they had Giannis, like I have to see the whole trade and everything included in it and what other moves they make afterwards. But it's like, it's still not a guarantee to me that it's all right. They're the favorites in the East.
I don't think it would be a guarantee they're the favorites in the East either. Like it obviously would depend on what else is in this trade with Jaylen Brown. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a straight 1-for-1 swap. And then as we've just seen, the Knicks are really good.
Like, yeah, that's the other thing.
You need a lot to compete with them, especially the way they were playing in the playoffs. And they have guys that can match up with Giannis. Like OG is one of the best Giannis defenders in the league. Not that there's anybody that can just stop him. And then if you have OG on Giannis, you got to all of a sudden put Mikal on Tatum, and that's a little bit more difficult matchup for him too. But I mean, just swapping Giannis for Brown, I don't think necessarily makes them the favorite right away, even though they have been installed as a bigger favorite for the title than the Knicks already.
Yeah, that's always just silly stuff when we're doing that. Plus, we have to see what the Knicks end up doing. Also,
right. Well, we could talk about that too. Like James Dolan coming out and saying like going into the second apron is suicide.
Yeah, that's a bit of a that should be a red flag for Knicks fans, and it to some degree there with that because they have decisions to make. Mitchell Robinson is going to be a guy they got to decide upon. I mean, they got stuff. Well, I want to save the Knicks for another day. I don't want to rain on New York's parade right now. Let this be at least like a week long, 2 weeks long. It already look, the World Cup has already kind of stolen some of the thunder of it, and look, no, man, the Norwegians rowing in Times Square and then doing yoga when the yoga class showed up is freaking hilarious. Okay, I get it. You may not be a soccer fan, but you cannot deny that being hilarious. Where the whole crowd of the class shows up. Just find it on social media, folks. Class shows up to do their weekly class at Times Square, and then you have a bunch of drunk Norwegians behind you basically doing the same thing. And cheering as they do it is hilarious. But anyways, let's save New York for another day because there's going to be a lot of stuff to kind of dissect about it. I don't want to do that right now. I want them to have fun. I think the other side of it is, how does the rest of the league respond with all this stuff? And if Boston doesn't get Giannis and then has to trade Brown, obviously, I don't think there's a haul they'll get back that's going to make me go like, oh, that's great. What?
I guess it depends where they send them.
Yeah, but I mean, there's nobody. They're not. I don't think they're coming back with okay, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. What else? It's okay, that's great, but you still don't have any bigs. You got exposed. Your bigs got exposed in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Like Hato was awesome in the regular season. I loved him. Got exposed in the playoffs and really could. You benched him in Game 7 for Luke Garza. Like you don't have bigs.
And then he played his best game in Game 7.
Right, but like you benched him. Sorry, I have World Cup on, folks. Looked like Messi was about to score. You had. Like you're in a tough situation if you're Boston with that. And by the way, you have to go after Giannis if you're, I think, Boston at that point. You want to get a big, you want to improve that stuff. I don't necessarily think it works, but like, yeah, you explore those conversations for sure.
Yeah, if the worst problem you have is trying to figure out how Giannis and Jason Tatum fit together, that's a really good worst problem to have. And they need rim pressure so badly. And there are few guys on earth anywhere that have ever been better at getting rim pressure than Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the important sort of piece to the puzzle with everything that you have going on. All right. We kind of went long on this, but any last thoughts on the potential Giannis? And folks, I'll be honest with you. It's Monday. It's 1:05 Eastern time, 10:05 West Coast time. If a trade happens after we record, I'm going to just put words in Jared's mouth and put the pressure on him. We'll probably do an addendum to the podcast and discuss it. But, you know, we'll see how that plays out. But any last thoughts you have on this before we go to break?
Let's just get this done already. Like we've been waiting so long for it. Like, let's just make the trade to Miami or Boston. I don't really care where it is at this point. I just want to see it and be done with this and write about it and then figure all it out when we get to next season.
Can we just get to the next step, folks, please? But we are going to take a break right now. And we are back, folks. Okay, Giannis trade discussed. Boom, box checked. We did discuss kind of lightly the OKC trade. And I want to go back to it because it leads to more ramifications of other things that are coming, you know, down the pipeline and stuff. And I want to kind of discuss it with you in a degree. Oh, we're reviewing. I might actually get a penalty kick, folks. Jared just gave me a face. He's already like, I hate the fact that Mo has soccer on TV right now. You should have seen me last night with Mo Salah. Yalla, yeah, Egypt. Anyways, the Aaron Wiggins trade, I loved it for Atlanta.
Yeah,
cost them 2 second-round picks. I don't want to say it didn't cost them anything because we've seen second-round picks matter. As a matter of fact, the guy they're trading for was a second-round pick.
Yeah, but the biggest thing about second-round picks is just that you can throw them into trades like this. That's their best value.
Exactly. And I think the when you look at it for what they have, all right, let's add another wing. Let's add another guy who could score, another guy who could put the ball on the ground. Like, this is Aaron Wiggins' development has been massive in OKC. The one thing I worry about, and this is something we've seen with some teams, like this usually happen a ton with Boston guys. They're great in Boston, but as soon as you trade them elsewhere, they suck. Right? And you know, like, so there's I shouldn't say suck, but they're not what they were when they were in Boston, right? Their previous spot. So it's almost like the first like test for me of like, let's see what this guy is now. You know,
I could see situation. It, but I think the thing that makes me somewhat less worried about it is how good he was in all of the games where other guys were sitting out. Like, usually with the Boston stuff, it would be like these guys excelled in certain roles and then they go play, you know, a similar role elsewhere, but they don't have the same guys to play off of. So they're not getting as quality looks or not getting as quality advantages created for them. Whereas Wiggins was very good in a specific role, playing off of Shea and J-Dub and Chet. But when he didn't have those guys on the court, he could do so much more than what he was being asked to do while playing a specific role. So I'm somewhat less worried about that. But I do think it is an interesting test case, like you said. But this is clearly like the first of several moves that are coming. Like I would expect Isaiah Joe to be next out the door, just because it would cut their tax bill so massively. But they also have the team options on Lou Dort and Isaiah Hartenstein that they have to figure out, and those are pretty massive. What's the word that I'm looking for? Those are massive choices that they have to make too.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing where I'm looking at going like, all right, that's a tough one. So the team option for Hartenstein is 28.5. For Lou Dort, 17.7. We should also mention they have a team option on Kenrich Williams at 7.1.
So and Kenrich Williams is like the biggest Thunder. He's like the new Nick Collison. He's like the biggest Thunder culture guy that there is.
Okay, I know you don't care. Messi just missed a penalty kick. That's a big deal. Okay.
I do care about that. I do care about that. Messi missing a penalty kick? That's crazy.
That was pretty good. And he missed it wide, but also I think the goalie had it lined up correctly anyways. So, all right. Sorry, folks. This is what happens. The World Cup's fucking fun. Sorry. Deal with it, folks. I don't care. If you want to complain about it, complain about it. The World Cup's fun. I love it. Okay. Back to this though. I think it becomes like you're right. Like I think they pick up the Kenrich Williams team option. To be honest, I thought he played pretty well in that Spurs series. And had moments. So I think you're right. I think Isaiah Joe is likely to go. He's guaranteed next year 11.3. And obviously you see what happens with, when you traded Aaron Wiggins, they like 70 million went basically off of their cap or whatever the math is. It's or 60 or something. It's pretty like that's the key here is like they need to get down on the tax penalty and work their way out. Because next year, J-Dub's extension kicks in. Chet Holmgren's extension kicks in, and both of that's around 42 million. So you're in a challenging situation there. I want to ask you, Kenrich Williams, let's put aside because I think they're going to pick up the option. It's going to be fine.
I think they might decline the option and bring him back at a lower number.
I think he can get that number though elsewhere, unless he really feels like he loves the Oklahoma City Thunder so much. I think the need for kind of bigs and the guy that can stretch it a little bit, like I think they could have that conversation and his agent should be like open for business. But that's all.
I mean, I don't know that he's getting $8 million plus a year.
He's going to get a good number though, I think, and more of a role, I think, to play as well.
More of a role he could get for sure. Because he's clearly a rotation player. And for most of the year, he's outside the rotation for the Thunder.
Yeah. I mean, they only played him when they were like, we absolutely had to in the Spurs series. And then it was like, oh, there's something there. Maybe should have done that earlier. But Isaiah Joe, I think we both agree is probably going to be traded. I'll be curious to see what team takes him on. It'll be another similar trade to the Aaron Wiggins one. Most likely to keep Hartenstein, don't you think? Decline the option, then sign him to a better deal. Like that's where I think the decline and sign him to maybe 2 or 3 year deal that helps him out, which then to me leaves Dort odd man out.
Yeah, I think that Hartenstein is a very good decline the option and bring him back at a lower number candidate. Maybe something that starts around 25 million instead of 28.5 million, or maybe it averages 25 million and starts at 22, 23, something along those lines. The thing about Dort being the odd man out is he's so close with Shea from obviously being there for a long time and being on Team Canada with him. And I know Shea said he's just going to let Sam Presti do his thing, but I can't imagine that he's not going to at least go to bat for his guy Dort.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put too much on that. I think there's gonna be also like interest in Dort. I already saw stuff like the Lakers are interested. I think there's going. By the way, I'm kind of out on him.
If he's not going to shoot like he didn't this year, then it's a big problem.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of like, this is the kind of guy like I could see a team going to get, but then at the same time, it's like, he wasn't what we thought he was going to be. So like, see that, but I think I think that's a guy that's not going to be on the roster next year. And I think we said this pretty much in their eulogy. We're like, I think he's gone. I think Dort's going to be out. I think they're going to start to find they got to start cutting down on the cap. With that, they have 2 draft picks, in tomorrow's draft, 12 and 17, which they may not necessarily use, but
supposedly they're trying to package them to move up. So
right, which by the way, teams 11 through 1 should not be taking Sam Presti's phone calls. Okay, sorry, this is if he's moving up, you're just screwing the league over.
I don't know. They moved up for Alexei Pokashevsky once, so
yeah, the Poku thing was stupid, and I loved when people tried to make Poku a thing.
That was like a Kristaps Porzingis sized guy who wanted to play like Trae Young was what I always compared him to.
Yeah, and that's about right, and unjustifiably wanted to play like that, in a way where you're like, come on, dog. But I think it's been more like they got to figure out how to get this stuff down so they could also be in a position to maneuver, right, and around the edges and stuff. That's where Presti's been so great, right, is making these maneuvers and let's make these small deals here and let's open up these opportunities and find places to work. It's going to be interesting the next kind of few days. That's a team to watch in terms of Oklahoma City. Not because I think they're going to make a big move, but I think they need to shed salary, and just seeing how they kind of navigate the cap is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, they might be the most interesting team of the offseason just because we thought that they were going to be this dominant force that was just winning the West and winning titles over and over, and then they didn't win the West this year, and now there's a real legit contender to their throne for the next 5 to 10 years. Plus, they have these 2 team options with significant contributors, and they're trying to cut money, and they have 2 draft picks, and they have a case on Wallace extension looming. There's a lot to figure out here.
Yeah, the Wallace extension, which was neglected in terms of bringing up, that's a big thing there that's waiting for them, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to figure that stuff out. That one's going to be huge because he's in line for a massive payday from the $7 million that he has coming next season. Any other OKC note you want to hit on, or you're kind of keeping an eye on, or anything?
I'm very interested in who they're actually targeting with this trade up stuff. I don't know who would be their target there. Supposedly they want to get the center from Michigan, Adai Mara, but they also just drafted Thomas Sorber last year as a big center type. So I don't know what the deal with that is there. Maybe they just want another option against Wemby, so they'd have Hartenstein, Mara, and Sorber if Sorber's ready to play. But yeah, I'm very interested to see who they would be targeting in a trade up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think the dream, right, was Cam Boozer trade up into the top 3 and was to get Cam
but
Boozer.
That's not happening.
No way. If a front office does that, they should be arrested on site. That's criminally negligent front officing. That's the law. But I think the stuff that I would watch for, I think they're going to target a big. I think also, and just a side note, we always I'm no longer on this team's going to dominate for the next 10 years train anymore. The league moves too
except for the Knicks, right? The Knicks are going to dominate for the next 10 years.
Easy, Tiger. Easy. I'm being nice. I'm giving you time to celebrate. Don't ruin this shit.
No, realistically, they have a 3-year window with this starting 5.
Yeah, I think that's what I was about to say. Is I look at these things more in 2 to 3 year opportunities now, more than that, or less than 10 or 5 even.
I did a story a few years ago for 538 that showed how long the average title window was open, and it was somewhere between 2 and 4 years, except for the Spurs, which lasted 17 years.
Yeah, Tim, right? Tim, Manu, and Tony weren't going anywhere forever.
Right.
And I think that was kind of the big piece of it. I want to shift over a little bit to the team I found most interesting over the weekend was the Lakers. And it was part of it was, and this is all rumors, but their interest in Dort was one thing. There was I'd mentioned it earlier, they were going to be the 4th team in the Giannis trade with Miami, and we're going to end up with Isaiah Stewart and Khalil Ware, which I don't know how real any of that is, but I'm like, God damn, that would fix your front court in like one swing. With
Certainly
that,
go a long way. I don't know that you get like the rim runner you need with Luka in that type of deal, but you get a lot of rim protection. Isaiah Stewart was the best rim protector in the league this year by the numbers.
and I wanted it to happen just because a few years ago we had the Isaiah Stewart try to kill LeBron James. And I wanted that to kind of come together and them have to be teammates again and sort that out. But like that was just my own little fun stuff I enjoy with that. But then, it's the Dort stuff. And then Dan Wokey wrote in The Athletic, and that like there's a legitimate ticking clock now with Luka looking at the Lakers front office going like, you guys promised certain things last summer. Like, I need to start seeing that. Like, are the Lakers going to have I don't think they're going to have a Luka problem, but are they going to have a Luka problem?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, they're going to give Reeves the max.
Or close to it.
Or close to it. They're going to have to – I still think they re-sign LeBron. They're going to have to come down – they're going to have to figure out the number.
I would say that LeBron will come down to whatever it takes to get them a center.
Yeah.
Is, I think, the idea.
And then they'll have to go find the center. Of course, DeAndre Ayton with the team option at $8 million. That sucks. Player option. Marcus Smart, also player option. Like, I would expect him to be back. And then there's stuff of like, okay, where, what's going to happen with Rui Hachimura? He's a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure out that. And like, he was their best shooter, really.
And you need shooters with Luka. Like, he's an important player, but they need a center so much that they might have to say goodbye to him.
Right. So they might end up losing out on him. Like, this is going to be a bit difficult for the Lakers in terms of navigating what do they have to figure out. It's him. It's, what are they going to do with Luke Kennard? What are the pieces around them? Like, how are they going to kind of build this out? I'm fascinated by them in that regard. And it's like, do you have any thoughts on them? Like, beyond what I have another team I'm going to discuss, but like, do you have any other thoughts with them?
No, I mean, what they do at center is the big thing, and how that plays into what LeBron's number is if and when he comes back. Like, are they going to go after Mitchell Robinson or Walker Kessler again? Or are they going to somehow try to get Jalen Duren? Like, who is the center that they're going to target, and how much are they going to have to pay for him? So, and what does that mean for LeBron?
Right. So, I mean, that's basically the gist of it. The other team we need to talk about, and we're a little bit delayed too. I probably should have started this segment with it. The Dallas Mavericks have a new coach. And, it's summertime, boys of summer, baseball. They've taken a big swing because they shocked everybody, and they got Dusty May from Michigan, which, like, I thought that was put to rest. I thought that was done and over with. And yet, here we are. Dusty May to the Dallas Mavericks. Thoughts?
Nico was right. No, I mean, look, they took some massive swings this summer getting Masai Ujiri and now Dusty May. And I think that this is all possible because they landed Cooper Flagg in the draft last year, which, to be clear, was not Nico Harrison's plan. You don't have to give him credit for any of this. But they get lucky in the lottery, and they have Cooper Flagg, who is one of the best players in the league to build around over the next however many years. And that, I think, very clearly helps them land Masai, and that helps them land Dusty May. I can't say I know too much about Dusty May as a coach, what he runs on the court. Like, I don't watch very much college basketball. I know that Michigan was really good and has 3 guys that are going to go fairly high in the draft, and he figured out a way to use all of them together in the front court. So that's at least interesting to me. And I know that their guard was very good and could be like a second round pick kind of guy, Cadeau or whatever his name is. So he's got he took Florida Atlantic to the Final Four. So He's got at least some coaching acumen. So Yeah, I mean it's an interesting hire to say the least, but being able to take these big swings is all because they landed Cooper Flag in the draft.
Yeah. And I think I love it. I don't know if Dusty May is going to work out as an NBA coach. Like we've had some coaches from college, Brad Stevens, work out. And we've had some that not, but like I'm trying to remember the guy's name in Cleveland. What the
John Beeline,
Beeline. That didn't work out so
also
well.
from Michigan.
Also from Michigan, that's right. So like it'll be interesting to see how. I like that Dusty May is a young guy. I think there's a little bit more juice with what he has. With that, I was surprised by that one. That one caught me off guard when that Shams news dropped. Also, I was annoyed because I was still waiting for Giannis news, but it was that. But like I love it. Take chances right now if you're the Mavs, right? Like swing big on this. You think this is going to be the guy that can help develop Cooper Flag and start building this team into a championship level team? Do it, right? Like I love that they did that. And for me, I'm kind of excited with the process. I'm surprised he left. Michigan just winning the championship. Don't know what's going on there. But like
the same thing happened with Michigan football, where Harbaugh left right after winning the championship.
Yeah, Harbaugh had troubles coming his way.
Yeah,
we little Connor Stallions issues and things like that. I don't think Dusty May has any of the stuff like you. I don't watch a ton of college. I don't pay attention to a ton of that. That's going to help us a lot in the next segment. But I think the area though for me is like, look, he's a smart coach. Like I've seen, like watching the basketball side of things. Like I thought he handled himself pretty well as a basketball coach. I'm excited for that. And this is the time to take the risk. Yeah. Right? Like your team's young, your superstar's young. It's not like you had to go, you're not the Knicks of last year where you have to go get a guy to take you to the championship and take you to the next level. This is also a job in which Dusty May can grow a little bit into an NBA coach from a college coach. And there will be some learning curve for him with that. I will be very interested in the staff he builds. That I'm going to keep an eye on because I think that's going to matter a ton.
Definitely, especially because he's never been in the NBA at any level. Like it's not like he was an NBA assistant coach either, Right. So how many connections does he have to NBA assistants that are going to be on his staff? That'll be interesting to watch. But I agree that swinging for upside here, I think swinging for upside as a coach is almost always the right move to me now that I think about it, rather than we're just going to hit like a middle of the road double. I would rather try to get the highest upside coach imaginable, because the one thing I think about coaches is you need to give yourself some sort of advantage on a night-to-night basis, whether it's tactically, culturally, preparedness, challenges. Like there's got to be some sort of advantage that your coach gives you on a nightly basis, and swinging for upside like this, I think, is an interesting move and the right move.
Yeah, and I think you have to kind of like see out like this is the move. This was the right move. I love that they did it with Masai. I love Masai saying, "Cool, you swung with me, you got me. Now I'm gonna take my big swing and take him, and we'll decide." Look, guys, we might be in December or January. I'd be like, "Yo, this dude sucks." Like we might be in a wild.
We could easily say that about any coach hire, though. Like we don't know. Yeah. We don't know before these guys are NBA head coaches how good they're going to be as NBA head coaches. Like
right,
regardless of how highly thought of they are as assistants. Like Adrian Griffin was one of the most highly respected assistants in the league, and then the head coaching tenure was a disaster.
I'll go even further. I was all in on Brian Shaw. That didn't work out too well. So it's just this is how this stuff goes. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of works itself out and plays out. But it's a good building block here for Dallas. Like a good start to the offseason for them with, securing, probably getting like the best candidate on the job market for the front office, and then getting the guy you want. They had been talking about Dusty May for a long time,
and
John Shearer. And it just felt like neither of them were really going to be interested. So I would love to read the story of how that all unfolded where like they called him a bunch or he was like no and then finally changed his mind. Or I would love to read that story. Any of you Dallas beat writers that are in the know or connected, I'd love to see that kind of come together. I'll save this other team for the next segment. Any other team interest? I'm going to save the Clippers for the next segment because obviously a lot of their interest kind of lies into where they're at with the draft, which is what we're going to do next. Any other team you're keeping an eye on or that you're finding interesting right now in the next, not just the offseason, but like the immediate offseason?
Well, now Portland's the only team that doesn't have a head coach. So, we'll see what happens there with Micah Nori and Tyler Lashbrook and Chris Gent are apparently the candidates that are left out there for them.
Chris Gent was just added too.
Yeah.
Like that was more, and obviously, he was a bit pissy the past few weeks. So, so that's a new addition in terms of the finalists. So that'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out in that regard. And then Portland, who've been active, they were trying to get in on the Giannis sweepstakes until Giannis was like, "Nah, dog, I'm staying on the East." So like they have been active and are trying to upgrade their roster. There's stories about them with getting Jaylen Brown. So they are trying to make some stuff. They are a team, I think, that's going to be poised to do stuff. I think everybody's going to kind of do something this offseason. I feel like this is going to be a very busy offseason with a lot of kind of movement in a weird way where some of it's going to be expected and some of it's going to be very like, huh? Like out of the blue.
I think you see a team like every time a team wins the title, you're sort of reacting to that team every offseason, whether it's trying to copycat them or trying to figure out a way to beat them. And I think when a team like the Knicks wins the title, that was like very good, but not dominant during the regular season. Teams think, oh, maybe we can try to replicate some of that, up ourselves a level, especially after the way the Knicks built their team with one free agent signing and then all trades.
Right.
I think you're going to see teams try to level themselves up in a piecemeal way and think maybe we can capture something magical along the way too.
I would say my warning to teams, you can't replicate what somebody else does, right? Like there's not like it's not an
teams
easy.
Are always going to try though. Like
always going to try.
Teams are always going to try,
and it's almost always a mistake because then the next year a team does it differently. And it's like, oh, now we're going to pick a plan, stay with your plan until you have to pivot for a reason other than, well, they just won this way, so we should win this way. Like,
right.
There's a million different ways to do it. All right.
Like the Knicks couldn't have done it any more differently than the Thunder did.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing you just have to leave it at that with where you're going. And I think you got to figure out where you kind of just pick your plan, stay with it, pivot when you have to, but not because of an outside, this team won this way or this team didn't succeed in the way they're building, but just be confident in what I just hate the constant pivot from teams like that because you're going to pivot year to year. You're going to pivot year to year and you're never going to actually have a plan. All right, let's take a break. Let's talk about the draft, some of the college guys, some of the interesting teams that I think can make the draft wildly interesting tomorrow. And we are back, folks. Jared, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay? And this is a you have three options here. Okay? If you had to pick, have I watched more college film? Have I watched more videos of Egypt celebrating their first ever World Cup win on social media over the last 24 hours?
That's the one. I don't even need to hear the third option.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. That's true. Actually, after Egypt won last night, I was just basically scrolling through. I'm Libyan. I'm not Egyptian, but it's the closest I will get to Libya being in the World Cup and getting a win. So I had to enjoy that for myself. Look, big deal. Draft is tomorrow. I will say it full-heartedly, folks. I'm not a draft guy. I will almost positively say something stupid on here about draft, right? I focus solely on the NBA. When these guys enter the league, then I kind of lock in a little bit. I know just enough about the first couple guys that I'm interested in, but like after that, I'm not going to go deep. Jared, I know you're not a major draft guy, but you've done way more. You've done more research than I have because again, I've been watching Mo Salah videos. You've done more research than I have. I want to start here at the very top because it kind of was interesting. Like the Peterson now, not surprised he's not working out in Utah. This is what Ace Bailey did.
Peterson actually said at the draft press conference earlier, I saw it on, I can't remember where. Jake Fisher said that at NBA Draft Media Day that he did meet with the Jazz over this weekend. He declined to say whether that was in person, but said it was more like a combine-like interview than an on-court workout.
Okay. Well, that was probably the probably a Zoom meeting. Let's just be honest. Okay. So let's come down to this. Peterson's thinking like I only worked out for the Washington Wizards. AJ DeBonsa has worked out for I think all three teams in the top three.
I think it was just the Wizards and the Jazz.
Oh, it didn't work out. Okay, okay. Well, Utah's taking him if he's available at 2. And then everybody's expecting Memphis to take Cam Boozer at 3, assuming the other two guys.
If he's there.
If he's there. What's your say of what do you think the 3 teams are going to do?
I think it's going to go DeBonsa number 1, which I think to me is probably the way I would go. Like he's just so big, so physical. He's such a good driver. He gets wherever he wants on the court. I feel like the mid-range shot is good enough and the shot looks clean enough that he'll be able to step out and hit threes. And I think that even though he didn't make plays defensively at BYU, he has such a good frame, such good size, such good athleticism that he has a chance to be a pretty good defender anyway. And if he's not a 35% usage guy, but he's a 28-30% usage guy, he can do more defensively than he did at BYU. So I feel like that's the way I would go. The interesting pick is Utah because Carlos Boozer works for them in the front office. Peterson didn't work out for them. The Angels are not going to care, but it's an interesting wrinkle to throw in there. I feel like Peterson will probably go there. There's just been more people that expect that than there have been some, like, you never know, Boozer could go too, but Peterson seems like the more realistic option there, then Boozer, then Caleb Wilson at 4.
I think if I'm Washington, I think DeBonsa is unbelievable. I think Peterson's a better player.
So I'm in on Peterson, even if I didn't watch any of the high school stuff. I'm just not really going to do that. But I'm in even if the on-ball stuff that he apparently did in high school doesn't come. That kid can shoot the shit out of the ball, and it looks so clean, so smooth coming out of his hand. It looks like it's going to go in every single time. Even if he just shoots the way he did at Kansas and doesn't do the on-ball creation stuff that he apparently did much more of in high school, I'm still willing to take that guy in the top 3 picks of the draft.
I think if I'm Washington, I'm taking the gamble and I'm taking him. And it's not a matter of, by the way, if you're Washington, I think you're fine either way, AJ or Peterson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Peterson just has an extra gear that we're going to go. Now, let's be honest. He had a weird freaking season in Kansas, right?
Yeah.
Was the all the stuff, the creatine cramping and things like that and so on. And the reports, not the medical reports, but like the experts, the draft people have been saying that all the teams have viewed his medical stuff and are confident in him and that he's going to be fine and medically cleared kind of deal. I feel like just a slightly higher upside for Peterson if he can bring that high school shake to him that he had, right? And the on the ball stuff that he had with him. If you're Washington, you're kind of a blank slate. I know you have Trae Young, and we'll see what happens. He had opted out of his deal. I think everybody was expecting him to opt in and extend, but he opted out. I still think he'll end up there. I don't know what's going to happen with Anthony Davis and them. I have a sneaky suspicion Davis will get moved in the offseason. All speculation on my end.
Wouldn't be surprised.
It's a blank slate to me, like Washington. Yeah. And I think in that instance, I think I go Peterson. But I'll say this. If it's AJ, I think Peterson is a better fit in Utah than Cam Boozer. I think I get all the parts that go to it, but we just saw playoffs. You need to have multiple ball handlers. You need to have multiple guys that can shoot. And by the way, I think Cam Boozer is going to be amazing. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to have an unbelievable NBA career. But I don't know if that – and I get it too. People don't prioritize fit or whatnot, but this is talent and fit. I think Peterson can pair just as – is a great running mate with Keontae George in your backcourt than I think trying to add AJ or Cam.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it, and I wouldn't even necessarily push back on that Peterson might have a higher upside than Dabonsa. Like, if he does what he apparently did in high school, then yeah, he might. With the Jazz, I think that a lot of it depends on what they think is going to happen with Walker Kessler. If Kessler is leaving or they're sign and trading him somewhere or something along those lines, then I see more of a natural pathway for Boozer where you can play Markkanen, Boozer, and Jaren Jackson Jr. together. I think that would be a really interesting look. If you're bringing back Markkanen, Jackson, Kessler, and you're adding Boozer, I just don't know how you're playing all of those guys at once. Like, are you trading Markkanen? Are you trading Kessler? Are you bringing Boozer off the bench? Like, I just don't know how you're playing all of those guys at once. So that sort of pushes me to Peterson too. But should you really be taking Peterson too if you think Boozer's the better player? No, like you should take Boozer first if you think he's the better player, because it's not like the Jazz are in a position where they're contenders right away either.
Yeah, and I don't, and maybe I should say this. I think as great as I think Boozer is going to be, I think Peterson can be your best player on a playoff contender in the future. Not right now, obviously coming in, but like project 5 years from now. I don't know. I think Boozer is going to be the piece that makes you a contender, but you're not there yet, right? And I think that's kind of where I'm at, and why I think. By the way, Messi scored 1-0 Argentina. If you're wondering why I was looking off while you were talking a few moments ago.
I feel like you're in very good shape if Boozer is your second or third best guy. But if he's your best guy, then I'm not worried, but I think that there's still some work to be done there.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think Peterson can be your best guy, right? And I think that's the difference, and that's why you take him at 2, and Boozer. Memphis is in the best situation.
Chicago too.
Well, I think, but I think it's pretty obvious the top 3, and I think Caleb Wilson going for like Chicago's like, man, we chilling. But Memphis is like, whatever you got, you two. It's like me when I go to dinner with my friends. You two order the food, I just eat. That's all Memphis is doing at this point. Like, and I think they're going to come away, listen, Coward, Edie, and Boozer, like that's a pretty strong, like young core right there to build around. Now, I have questions about Edie, but still, like you can't argue with his size and the ability there. Like I kind of like the way that sets up and lines up for Memphis. But if Peterson or Dabonsa falls to them, no problem. Then it's Peterson, Coward, and Edie. That's a great young. Like we could keep doing it. Like I think they're in a great situation.
Absolutely, like they're sitting pretty at that spot.
Right. I think we said this before. I think the draft starts at 5, and I don't want to undercut Chicago. I think they take Caleb Wilson. I think that's the move you go to, and I hope they find a way to just. I think under Tiago Splitter, I think they focus so much on development. We're going to see some great stuff there.
And I think him and Modest Buzelis would be really nice together.
Yeah. And I do wonder though with the Clippers at 5, right? Like, because this is where it's interesting. Because this is where this is a pretty heavy guard draft, particular point guard draft. They made their trade for Darius Garland. I think if you're the Clippers, how Garland has 3 years left on his deal. Like, how much are you? This is our guy. We can't draft another point guard, or are you like, hey, we're just going to take what's available right now? Because there's going to be a lot of interesting point guards available at that time.
I'm just taking the best guy that's available. Like, Darius Garland is a very good player. He's injured a lot. We've seen that he's not necessarily a guy that's going to be like the best player or even the second best player on a really good team. I think you just got to take the best guy because this is the best chance you're going to get at getting a high level asset in this spot. Do you necessarily want to pair him with another really small guard who's not very good on defense? If you're going to take Darius Acuff, who I think is a really interesting player, and I have almost no worries about offensively, but I am extremely worried about him ever holding up defensively, which is not a new take. Obviously, that's what basically everybody says about him. But if you think he's that good offensively, that he's the next best guy on the board, I would just take him and figure it out later.
So let me ask you this question. And by the way, correction, 2 years left on Garland's deal, not 3. Because I think I'm on the same train of like, I take who I like the best. Not going to be beholden to Garland. Not going to be beholden. I'm not trading this pick if I'm the Clippers.
No.
You have to get younger if you're this team. Like, you have to start figuring out how you're going to kind of build out your roster beyond Kawhi. Obviously the aspiration thing's hanging over them, although I don't think we're ever going to get an answer on any of that. Acuff, I like in terms of the scoring and stuff. Who's another name you think would be interesting? I'm kind of lukewarm on Wagler. Is that
really?
too high?
I liked him a lot.
Did you?
Yeah. When you're 6'6", you can shoot on or off the ball and you have really good feel in the pick and roll passing department. That's just the guy that's going to endear himself to me every single time. Like, he's not a great athlete. I think he had 0 dunks this season. He's very slow, very below the rim kind of player. But when you can shoot on or off the ball, you can play either backcourt position and you have really good size and length and you can pass. You're going to be up my alley every single time.
Okay. I just don't feel like for whatever reason, there's just something when I've watched him. And again, I know just enough to be stupid, not enough to be dangerous, enough to be stupid.
To be clear, I'm in the exact same situation.
No, you know a little bit more than me.
I've seen a little bit more, but I still like, I've seen 20 minutes of these guys, like I cram in the few days between the finals and the draft, watch a couple scouting videos. These are the guys' strengths and weaknesses. This is what they're good at and bad at. These are the numbers. And that's what I go off of. I have lukewarm takes that are very loosely held, but from what I've seen, I liked him.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's like what I'm looking at 5. And again, it's really these guys at these high picks. Like, is this the building block for me to be? And if you're the Clippers, like playoff contenders and fringe contenders, and I don't mean in the moment. The hardest thing about the draft is you're projecting who these guys are going to be 4 or 5 years from now, especially these guys because they come in so young. At 18, 19 years old, you don't know what they're going to be necessarily. Right. I think is the hard part. So like, I'm watching them, and I just don't. I see him as kind of like being a guy that ends up being a role player.
Mm-hmm.
And at 5, I want more. I want something a little bit more interesting. What are your thoughts? And again, very, very loose thoughts on my part on Brandon Berry's in Arizona.
Braden Berries, I believe is his name.
So again, I told y'all I would say something stupid, and I said Brandon instead of Braden. So just leave it at that.
I liked him a lot too. Like, on and off the ball, again, can shoot, good in transition, beats closeouts, gets to the free throw line, seemed to be a good positional rebounder. and defender. He's a little bit short for an off guard, and he probably needs a point guard out there with him. He's not like the best playmaker for others, but like, can he be Derek White offensively? That would be very interesting to me.
That'd be nice. And again, that goes back to, though, most likely a role player at 5. Like, it's hard to kind of.
Yeah, I tend to look more at, like, when it comes to the draft, like, what are guys good at and how can you use them in a positive way than like what are guys
good at
weaknesses. I tend to think more about the baseline outcome than the ceiling, because you're just more likely to get the baseline outcome. But the ceiling obviously does matter. It's just something that I struggle to factor in as much.
It's hard in that area.
Yeah, I don't see like superstar upside for him, though. Like, you're right. I think he's more of like he's going to be, if he's your third best player, I think that's pretty good.
And then what does Brooklyn do at 6? Again,
just take the best guy. Again, like there's nobody on that team that you should be worried about passing over. Just take the best guy on the board.
And then same. I mean, this is going to be the point with everybody. Sacramento at 7. Same. They're going to take a point guard. I think they're hoping Acuff falls to them. Yeah. I think is really the scuttlebutt that I've read with everything. Atlanta at 8 is going to be interesting to see what they do, especially now after the Wiggins trade. It's kind of like,
and bringing CJ McCollum back
and brought CJ McCollum back on a 1-year deal. It's kind of like our guard rotation and wing rotation is kind of set. I'm guessing they probably go big. Maybe that's where Mara goes.
I think it depends on what they think they're going to be able to do in the free agent market, because they could still use the mid-level exception to bring in a big man to play behind or in front of Antetokounmpo if they want. Like I know in the mock offseason on Dunked On, they were the team that signed Mitchell Robinson, which would be really interesting. They used that I can't remember who had the Hawks in the Dunked On mocked offseason, but they got Mitchell Robinson there and brought him in as the guy behind Antetokounmpo. But I think that they could go for a point guard also. Like CJ was really good for them. He is on the older side, only back for 1 more year. You still need probably a point guard long term. So they could be interested in a point guard there too, even though they are bringing CJ back.
It's gonna be, I don't know what else to say. Like, this is going to be a fascinating draft because I think we're going to see a lot of movement. We already talked about OKC trying to jump in and get into the top 10. You know, after that, Dallas at 9. I mean,
and now we have a wild card there too, because they just hired the Michigan coach.
Yeah, right. So now the Michigan guys are all at play. Does he draft does he go for one of his guys? Milwaukee at 10. No idea where, you know, what their situation is going to be. Golden State 11. I think Golden State's kind of in the same point as the Clippers. They got to use the pick and maybe actually nail it this time.
That would be nice.
You know, but they need to get younger and get and kind of an injection of youth. OKC, we talked about 12. Miami at 13. We don't even know if they're picking there. I already saw something with Windhorst saying the Clippers were exploring and talking to guys that are mocked to be around 10 to 15, thinking that they might somehow be picking in there in that instance. So that might be a thing where they might be, you know, they might have the Miami pick. I don't know. It's also weird. With everything. Is there one thing, because we've gone a little bit long, is there one thing about the draft that you're really paying attention to?
I mean, it's where all the guards go in the 5 to 9 or 10 range, and then where all the big guys that are coming next go, because there's supposedly going to be a run on guys like Mara and Merez Johnson and Hannes Steinbach and Jaden Quaintance, who I really liked, but apparently his knee is all messed up because he tore his ACL. Like, he was a guy who was at Arizona State, was too young to be a one and done, tore his knee, and then went to Kentucky and came back too early and didn't, like, his camp didn't want him to come back early, and Kentucky did. But from what I saw, he's like basically Robert Williams, but with the same injury concerns.
Well, that's not that being Robert Williams through and through is not good.
Yeah, I liked him a lot from what I saw in the scouting videos that I watched. So And there was a guy, Cameron Carr, who I hadn't heard of before. My friend Brian Schrader sent me his draft board, and he had Cameron Carr like 7th on the board, and I hadn't heard of him before. I watched him this morning, and I fell in love with him. I think that kid's going to be very, very good.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'm excited for the draft just because I know we're going to get movement in trades. I always try to look at it as like, oh, if this guy is the guy people say he's going to be, this is good for the team. XYZ. We'll be back on Wednesday to discuss everything. At that point, God willing, Giannis will have been traded. I think when Giannis gets traded, I think we'll see a couple other things move pretty quickly after that, depending where he goes and how things kind of get going. And I think we'll have movement at the draft, and we'll be back on Wednesday to discuss all of that stuff. Thank you, folks, so much for listening to the Double Dribble podcast.
See y'all.